Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, today I'm going to be talking about a difficult subject, which is all about dating after a divorce. Now, dating after a divorce can be very, very challenging, but there are definitely actions you can take to make the process so much easier. If you're divorced, then hopefully you enjoy this podcast and you'll learn the tips to help you re-enter the dating world. Because dating can help you move past the divorce and is the first step to finding a new love. So today I am very, very lucky to be joined by a NLP, wellbeing and personal development coach, and her name is Tasha Thor Stratton. Tasha, welcome to my show.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, Tasha, when we spoke before, you told me about your fascinating backstory, about how you were divorced and how you met the love of your life. Can you tell my listeners about you and what happened?
Sure. So in April 2016, I met my partner, Russ, and he's now my fiance. And I'd been divorced probably for about 4 or 5 years and had a couple of boyfriends. And I was, up until then, really knowing what I didn't want. And I'd kind of come off the dating scene and got a little bit kind of bored by it, by the repetition and lots of time wasted and things like that. But what had actually happened, I was working with somebody who was on the dating scene and she was using the apps and everything. But she was just finding that people were just wanting to meet up with her and, kind of do all that stuff that she didn't really want to do initially. So I said, look, let me look at your profile. So we changed her photo. We actually changed the wording of it. And lo and behold, a couple of days later, she came back to me, she said, Tash, I can't believe it. All of a sudden, all these guys are actually wanting to talk with me rather than just wanting to come around. So I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. So I've probably been offline for about 4 or 5 months. I thought, well, she's had some luck, then I'm just going to go back on it and see what happens. So I updated my profile. My picture was, an up-to-date one. And I just thought, I'm just going to see what happens. And literally on that day, I connected with Russ. And the thing was, I think leading up to that, I'd really, really made a mental note of the qualities that I wanted in somebody and actually gone to, as far as writing them down. And I'd started to read The Secret and The Power, all these kind of other things, and started writing some letters to the universe, which had also helped me out with some, really, really tricky financial situations as well, during divorce. So I thought, if it worked then why can't it work now? And now I kind of understand a little bit more about manifestation. I know that all those things were just at the front of my mind, and therefore I was thinking about them a lot. And as soon as I connected with him, we had a couple of texts here and there. But literally that night he asked for my number. And I thought, this is brilliant, because I know that when you have a two-way conversation with somebody, you just get so much from that, don't you? To actually hear what they're saying, how they're saying it. And obviously it shows that they're just interested in finding out about you. And we arranged to have lunch the next day, which actually I thought was going to be a cup of tea, but actually was a lunch. So I was like, I'd already eaten. I was like, okay, yeah, we'll have lunch. We made small talk. He was a family man. He'd kind of all those things that I wanted. He was independent. He'd been separated for a while. He had his own business. He was intelligent. All those things. I was like, oh, this is good. And then straight after that, I actually remember walking to the car park and I was like, oh, thanks anyway. Keep in touch. And that is an ultimate sales brush off when you're in sales. He was an estate agent at the time, and he thought I totally wasn't interested, but I was just so nervous. That was like the first thing that came to my mind. So yeah, we'd arranged a date there and then to kind of meet up next week for a proper dinner date. So literally that kind of rolled on to proper going out. Because I think in my profile I said I'd like somebody to go out to places like Borough Market, go and explore and proper date, because it had been so long since I'd actually done that. I'd had 17 years with my ex, and 2 children down the line. Obviously those things kind of get tricky as time goes on. So I really wanted a good period of time of going out and doing fun stuff and just, really, really enjoying somebody's company, but not just staying in kind of Netflix and chill kind of thing. So we'd had 6 months of that, which is fab. Got to know a bit more obviously about him and his family, and it got to the point where we introduced the children to each other. I've got 2 and he's got 3. So that was probably September, October time. And then, I'd already started to think, wow, wouldn't it be quite cool if we could move in together? I had a house, so I kind of had a bit of a safety, outlet in case things didn't work out. I didn't want to jump in, but it felt right. But I know some of my friends and family were like, you've only really just met him. Are you sure you know what you're doing? But it kind of just felt right. So I thought, look, you only live once kind of thing. I'm just going to do it. It feels right. Everything's amazing. So we actually moved in together in November of that year. So amazing Christmas. And it was just one of those moments where everything just worked. And I just remember looking around thinking, this is just awesome. This is the happiest I think I've ever been in the whole of my life. And everything just worked. And then it got to January in 2017 and I'd ignored some symptoms in my stools and had a test, a colonoscopy basically. And in January 2017, I was diagnosed with terminal bowel cancer. So obviously that kind of really wasn't the dating plan of having just moved in with the love of my life and, creating this big blended family of loveliness. So obviously, people always talk about having cancer and getting the diagnosis of shock. Well, it massively was because I was fit, healthy, looked after myself, no family history. But thankfully, fast forward 2 weeks, they said, yes, there is stuff going on in my liver and my lungs and lung nodules and all that kind of stuff. But I was able to have an operation. So I had invasive surgery and then unfortunately had spread. So it was at stage 3. So I had 4 months of chemotherapy. But, Russ was very much there to support me through that. And thinking back to what my friends and family were saying, had I have stayed in my house on my own, I wouldn't have had that support around me to recover the way that I did. And I continued to work apart from having 6 weeks off from my operation, but having somebody that was on my same level whose values of, looking after somebody regardless, unconditional love and all that kind of stuff was just so important. And then thankfully, fast forward the 6 months from after diagnosis, in August that year, I was given the all clear. And ever since then, 3 years ago, I've had the all clear. And Russ then, 2 years after that proposed. And the rest is history. But it always reminds me that had I not chosen somebody like Russ, I just would have been in a very, very different place. And it's not just about choosing the right person right at the start. It's knowing that that person is going to be there at every step along the journey, and you're going to be able to help each other out through the toughest challenge, of having a life-changing, and a potential death situation very, very early on in a relationship. We'd not even been dating for a year by then, so it was pretty tricky.
I can imagine. That's an absolutely amazing story. It's an inspirational one. It's going to give people hope that there's someone out there. And you mentioned about reading The Secret and manifestation. I think what you did is you made this list, you wrote down what you wanted. I did the same thing to attract my wife. I think you had a positive mental attitude, and this helped you get through the whole process and obviously helped you ultimately get the all clear. And I imagine this must have massively brought you together, made you even closer during going through such a strange, horrible, emotional journey together. You see the good side of each other and you see the bad side of each other. But it made you realize this is the person I'm ready to spend the rest of my life with. And you're right. I think family and friends do want to see you happy. And therefore, it is tempting to rush into things. And sometimes clients come to me quite a lot and they do rush into relationships. And they get a love bomb very quickly by one of them and it fizzles out. But this is 3 years now?
It's, 4 years, 5 years next year.
Wow, that's amazing. So this is the long term and you're fit and healthy now. And
yes,
you've got a future to look forward to. But I had to laugh. You said at the start, you said keep in touch. In touch, which is an absolute blow off. That is, well, it's nice to meet you. Have a nice life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. So no, don't end the date in that way. Just tell me. I would say make the plan for the second date at the end of the first one if you can. To anyone listening, yes. Don't say keep in touch or had a really nice time. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your year.
We still laugh about it now.
Of course you do, of course. But that's something to learn from, I think, in that case. What is it like having 5 children in the house at one time? Because I've got 2 and that's a nightmare.
Yeah, so I've got 2 and they are 16 and 11 now, and Russ's crew are 12, 10 and 9. So they're very different ages, obviously very different personalities. And the 2 boys, one from mine and one from Russ's side, get on fantastically. The 2 older girls tend to get on brilliantly. We live, thankfully, in a really nice area where the middle girl, can be out the front playing with all of her friends around the pond. So, There are times, obviously, when it is really, really busy. So we have shared care with both of our ex-partners. So we know exactly where the kids are going to be. So we can plan it ahead. So normally they come to us on a Wednesday or a Thursday and then go back on a Sunday. So there's either 3 or 4 nights every week when they're with us. So yeah, there are times when it's really, really, really busy. And there are times also when they tend to go back to their other mum and dad on a Sunday. So we get all of Sunday, all of Monday and all of Tuesday, obviously to work. But Tuesday has always been date night. So obviously with lockdown, it's been a little bit different. We've not been going out, but we do still mark it with doing something, a little bit different than just for us. And I think that is just the opportunity to recharge batteries. So sometimes on a Sunday, we're so tired from just doing stuff with the kids and, being pulled from pillar to post with all of their needs and wants. But obviously it's what we want to do because we're family people, but we are absolutely shattered. And it's so important that we've just got that time to connect, but also just to recharge our batteries. So I think if we were all together all the time, it would be less than easy, let's say. But it works for us. And it, like I said before, it just gives us the time to have some time together as well, with peace and quiet.
It's about getting a balance that's right, I think, isn't it? That's what it is. Because I think many people that are going for a divorce and they've met someone new, they're not sure the best time to mention the fact that they've even got children. So you met on how did you meet them? Was it a dating app, a dating site?
Yeah, it was Tinder,
Tinder, wow, of all places. Okay.
I know, exactly. Who would have known?
Did you state in the profile that you had children?
Yes, I said, and I think I was quite clear, and I said, I'm looking for somebody who's also got a family, because I didn't want, I wanted to do family things with that person because that's the kind of person I am. So I wasn't going to be able to be spontaneous and to pop across the channel and have a quick trip to France, last minute. That just wasn't at the stage of life that I was at and not something that I wanted. So yeah, I was very clear and very transparent, just so that the other person knew what, my situation was. I didn't want to ever lie and create an illusion of something that I wasn't, because what's the point, that I'm just lying to myself basically. So yeah, I was very clear. And I also said about what I didn't want in a person and going out, and also very clear about what I did want from that person and the sort of, the times that we were going to have together. It wasn't very long, because obviously on Tinder you can't put that much in there. But I think, once you have that initial conversation, that two-way conversation, you get to find out about them, then that becomes a bit more apparent. But yeah, absolutely, right from the start, this is who I am. I've got children. That we come as a package. So it's up to you whether or not you want to continue with that. But, of course, everybody's different. I know some people have got together with other people who've got children. They haven't got children themselves and they love it. And they've always wanted to have a family. But why hide it?
Many clients do ask me that. They say, do I have to mention the fact I've got children in my profile? And of course you do, because there are people out there that want to date someone that's got children and people out there that don't want to date someone that's got children. So don't hide it. Don't embrace the fact you've got children. It's a wonderful thing. You're very fortunate. And it will stop you wasting time with other people that aren't suitable if you just be honest right from the start.
Yes.
So at which point do you think it's important to tell your children that you've got a new partner? How did you handle that? How far in? What did you do?
Yeah, we had 6 months, as I said earlier, of just really having some nice, normal sort of adult time together without kids. But it was probably about, 4 or 5 months in that they'd obviously started to notice that I was on the phone and texting and things like that. And then obviously slowly introduced them to the idea that I'd met somebody with children. And obviously for them, they had met, over a period of 1 or 2 months and got to know each other, and they were slightly younger at times, so things were easier. I think things are a bit more tricky, I think, if you've got teenagers involved, because obviously you've got all their hormones, and they've got more of an opinion on the situation, whereas for the younger ones, it was a lot easier to kind of blend them together. But also, we were, emotionally intelligent enough to know that we needed to always put ourselves in their shoes and just to be, really honest, really gentle with it. And obviously when we moved in, we were, very cautious of that in a way and careful, and have always encouraged them to talk. And that's been, really a key to our relationship going forward. In Russ's little one now, we asked him what he wanted for Christmas this year, and he said, all I want is my mummy and daddy to get back together. And, after the initial kind of gulp of, whoa, okay, that's tough, I was actually, I reframed that, flipped it straight around, that he was happy enough and confident enough to share what was actually going on for him. And, his older sisters were like, no, you can't do that. You really upset Tash. She's amazing. I'm like, no, this is really good, Max. Carry on talking because I want to hear. Because, in his eyes, he sees his mum and dad getting on well together. So he's thinking, well, why can't they get back together? They're friends. So, but it's just managing their emotions and seeing what it's like from their perspective, and just empathizing with it and being compassionate about it, really. And I think we've always done that. And obviously there have been times when we've kind of missed things, but to always encouraging them to talk about what they're going through and to see it from their side of things is something that we've always put their sort of needs first as well as our own. So I don't think, there's a set amount of time, is there really, where it's the right time? Is it a year, 2 years, a month, a week? It's all about circumstance and how you deal with it with the children, because then when you teach them how to deal with these things as they grow older, they know how to, recognize the red flags of things that they should be recognizing, manipulation and, control and all those other things. And also embracing life and going, right, well, this is an amazing opportunity and I'm going to enjoy it for what it is, because I don't know what is going to happen next. So it's enjoying what you've got that's in front of you, really. I think is the lesson that we also teach them. And just knowing that you can always cope with whatever you're faced with, I think is one of the things that we try and help them manage, really, as they're growing up.
I think it's really important to consider what your children might be thinking, because while it's probably a scary and a nerve-wracking time for them, it's also an exciting time. As long as they see you're both happy together and they can see the added value, maybe having new siblings to play with, then it's a good thing to do. But you're right, do it at your pace when you're ready. If it's 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, whatever it might be, do it when you're ready and when you feel the children are ready.
Yeah, and not to push it, and not to make the children feel a certain way if they're not feeling it. And my daughter, we've been together for 4 years, and she said to me probably about 2 months ago, and she's all of a sudden just softened around Russ. And it wasn't like she didn't like him or anything, it's just that she was hesitant. And going through the teenage hormone things, there's so much that goes on for girls, especially at that age. So, and I gave her space, encouraged her to talk all these kind of other things, but she only opened up a little while ago and said, I didn't really want to let him in because I wasn't sure that he was going to hang around. So, and you're like, yeah, I get that. Of course I do, because I'd had a couple of boyfriends who, I've been divorced for 7, 8 years now in between, and they have been introduced to them, and then I've been with them, for 6 months to a year. So they'd probably seen a couple of boyfriends before that and thought, oh God, that's going to happen again. They're not going to hang around. So although I thought it was the right decision at the time, it was at the time, but it didn't last for whatever reason. She's thinking, oh, I don't want to get too close because he might leave. So, and that's completely understandable, isn't it? And it's just great that she was able to vocalize and articulate that with me. That was awesome.
Exactly. You did the right thing at the time. Yeah, that's what you did. You made the decision that these previous partners were hopefully going to go the distance, but who knows what's going to happen? You just don't know the right time. So you moved in together quite early on.
Yes.
How soon do you think that is too soon?
I don't think there is. Well, I would say you need a good amount of time, but how long's a piece of string? It depends on whether or not you just met somebody or you've known them through a friend of a friend and then they become a partner. There's so many different facets that go into it, isn't there? Looking at their history, looking at how they behave, looking at what they want and your situation and weighing it up. Sometimes it's more a practical decision and a financial decision, especially, I guess, maybe during these times, people are struggling and they might think, oh, let's get together because we're going to be cutting the cost of the bills and rent and mortgage and whatever, things like that. Or it could be a totally emotional decision where you just think, right, we really work, let's just go for it. So I don't think there's any rights or wrongs. I think it's just, you just never know what's going to happen. And it feels right as a person, and you feel that person's going to be, joining you in that journey for the great good of you and the family, then you should just go for it.
I completely agree. You do what you feel is right when the time is right. So what advice do you have to anyone else that wants to learn how to listen and trust their own gut instinct on these situations?
Well, I think it's not, in a way, not believing everything that your brain tells you. Because if you've been through, a divorce and some trauma and grief obviously around that, even if it is a good divorce, there's going to be probably things that are your pain points that your brain's going to be like, oh, watch out. And it's sometimes not believing that and just kind of going for it. I'd definitely say that as an advice of don't let it hold you back if you've been hurt before. in a way, you just kind of got to give everything and, give that unconditional love to somebody rather than holding back. And it's also taking time and actually working out what you want first. It's that whole cliche, isn't it, around if you don't love yourself first, then how are you going to attract that right person to you to work together going forwards? If you're looking for somebody to, replace something or to give you something you haven't got, then probably things aren't going to be great going forwards. But if you're finding somebody who's going to complement you and you're going to champion each other going forwards and you're going to grow together, that's amazing. And it's just, I guess, not sticking maybe to the tried and tested routine, especially if it's not working. Maybe you need to go into a negative loop of like, well, I want this and I want that and I want somebody who's tall and somebody who looks after themselves, and you're very rigid about it. Then that's probably not going to work because you might always be disappointed. But just be open to doing things in a different way, going to different places, and being open to new situations and new people, I guess, and learning more about yourself and putting yourself maybe through a sort of a personal development thing and recognizing your triggers and knowing what makes you feel uncomfortable and sort of embracing that and going, well, why is that making me feel uncomfortable, and working through it rather than ignoring it and then, making the same mistakes again.
I think what's important is just to trust yourself and trust that deep down what is right for you when the time is right. And a lot of this comes down to just thinking about what you really do want. What are your values? What are the most important things that you want? What do you want in life? What do you want? What you don't want? How do you think that has an impact in people's relationships in general?
Yeah, well, knowing obviously a little bit about NLP now, you get what you focus on. So if you say, I don't want somebody who's going to be lazy, then because you're still saying that, you're still looking for that kind of behavior. So you should obviously change that to I'd like to be with somebody who's quite active and who's, got get up and go. So it's focusing on the things that you do want. And I know that you talked about it in your previous podcast, which is awesome. And it sounds like such a simple thing, but it's that negative self-talk of, I don't deserve it. I couldn't possibly have somebody who was going to be like this. So it's kind of building yourself up into being that person, how you want to come across as well. But yeah, definitely having it at the forefront of your mind and also writing it down is actually really powerful, and just saying, right, okay, well, I want this person, I want them to arrive by then. And sort of having a bit of a goal around that as well. And why not? Why not expect it to happen rather than not? But I think, the journaling and writing it down as often as you possibly can, and obviously tweaking that as time goes on if you realise that's actually not what you want, but being clear on what your values as a person are. So for me, it was all about being a family person, somebody who was independent, somebody who was, emotionally intelligent and who liked going out and who liked to have, adventures and like traveling and food. But, I was very clear on what that looked like because I'd also didn't have that in the past. So it's like anything, I guess, more about what you don't want and what you don't like rather than what you do want. So, when I coach people, I say, so what are you really bad at? And it's like a ton of lists of things that they're really bad at and things that they need to change. But when I say, so what are you really good at and what are your skills? And, what makes you feel amazing? They're like, So it's just really, really building up on the kind of things that you do want and the kind of the qualities that you're open to obviously give to somebody else. Because it's not all about take, isn't it? It's what you're able to give to somebody.
No one ever knows. Whenever I ask that question and I say to them, well, what do you have to offer in life? What's so special about you? They never know. And it's a very powerful coaching question to ask people.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, it's important to state and to know things that you do want rather than what you don't want. Because it's when you write in your personal dating profile. You mentioned that on your Tinder profile that you've put things that you didn't want. Now, yeah. I'm not gonna criticize that now, because obviously it did work for you, and this is many years. This is quite a few years ago before you probably knew what you were really doing with this. So I'm not gonna correct you on that. But many people do write in a profile negative things. They might write in there that I don't want somebody who smokes. That's not what you have to write. Instead of writing I don't want someone who smokes, just write I want someone who is fit and takes their health seriously. And that's the better way of framing it. So obviously, I think if people are going for a divorce or they just need a divorce and want to meet people, the first thing they're probably going to do, especially now during these strange times, is probably go online and to create a profile and to try and find someone that way. What advice could you give to somebody who is newly single again to attract the right sort of person in their profile?
I think it's about how you're coming across. So the picture of how you want to present yourself should be appropriate to the kind of person that you want to attract. So, with my picture, there was not a lot of flesh on show, and it was purely a headshot and no bikini shots and stuff like that, because firstly, it's not really the kind of person that I am, and it's not that, person I'm with isn't, wasn't going to be attracted to, obviously going to be attracted, but initially I didn't want somebody who was just going to be looking at my body, basically, I guess. So that would be my recommendation. Think about the kind of person you want to attract. So if that is the kind of person that you want to go for, then obviously, you sell yourself on that image and the pictures that you put up there. And obviously, you were saying before about having children, obviously, kind of blank their faces out for privacy, but show yourself in that group setting of being a mum or a dad, because that's an important part of you if you're looking for somebody to also be part of that going forwards. And to think about the profile. And yeah, you're right, this was probably 4 years ago now, and it was before I'd even found NLP. So I didn't understand, the neuro-linguistic programming side of what I was saying then. Now I do, obviously, and this is how I help clients do the same. But it's all about putting yourself across in a way that's authentic, but also going to be attracting the right kind of person. So, now I think NLP is sometimes called manipulative, isn't it? But I believe it's all about taking somebody on a journey where you also want to take, where you want them to go as well, and have that kind of joint goal by the end of it. And that's no different to dating, isn't it? This is me, this is who I am, this is what I love doing, this is the kind of person I'm looking for, because actually this is what I'd like to happen as a result of that going forwards. And it's not the end goal, it's the daily goal of how you live your life going forwards with that person. And it's creating the paragraph that strikes out to somebody, oh, that's really interesting, that that really strikes a chord with me, I want to talk to that person to find out more. It's kind of, it comes down to telling yourself, isn't it, really, and giving people the opportunity to be open, to say, right, I want to find out more, let's have a chat, let's text, let's meet up, let's whatever, but take that next step. So it's a window of opportunity, but obviously dating apps isn't where everything lies. There's obviously more opportunity, especially with things opening up now. It's it's going to the gym, it's having that open frame of mind, and obviously with understanding the RAS, your reticular articulating system, it's being open to meeting more people. So even when you're in the supermarket queue, it's, I know that people can't see your smile, but you can talk. And if you see somebody who you like the look of, strike up a conversation and being confident around that, because you never know where you're going to meet somebody, and it's being open to creating opportunities and stop waiting for people to come to you. And it's all about taking control of the situation and going, right, okay, well, I'm the driver of my life, I'm going to be open to lots of different things and create those opportunities myself, rather than waiting for somebody to knock on my door and say, oh, hi, I'm your new partner, let's make a life together. You have to be active in it, you have to make a plan, and you have to in a way sometimes step back and let it come to you as well.
Absolutely agree. What advice would you give somebody who perhaps they've got quite low self-esteem from a bad dating choice in the past? What can you tell somebody who wants to avoid making the same mistakes again the next time round?
It's recognizing it. The first step is always awareness, isn't it? It's going, right, I've done that before, I've been with that kind of person before, this has happened as a result of that, they behaved in that way, I behaved in that way, I didn't like it, so what do I need to change? And kind of recounting the steps back as to what made them think that was a good idea at the time, and working out what personality traits and behaviours that they now want to focus on instead, the kind of person they want to focus on instead, so that won't repeat itself. But it's called a negative loop, isn't it? And once you know you're in it, you can work out an exit strategy. But all too often, we are attracted to that kind of person, that instant attraction, that primal kind of, oh, excellent, and that, the feeling of love and lust and stuff takes over, doesn't it, sometimes? And maybe some people don't think that far in advance and forget what's happened in the past with similar kind of relationships and ignore the red flags. But the red flags are the things that, your gut instinct is telling you something that's not quite right here. I don't know what it is, but I need to make note of it, and be, careful as you go on, and cautious, and, mindful of those situations as they arise again, and then be able to make the choice down the line, when you think it's like, brilliant, this is what's, great, I want to continue with this, or all those things I remember had happened before with somebody and somebody else down the line, and I don't want to go down that route again. So therefore, I need to stop this and give myself a bit of space, whatever it is, and start again with somebody new.
Great advice there. Reflect, think about what you've done and think, do I really want to make the same mistakes again? No. Learn from what's happened and embrace the future. Thank you so much, Tasha. I'm going to give my listeners my own 6 top tips now, and I'll let your thoughts on them very quickly afterwards. This is raced by already this time. This is a great podcast. Thank you, Tasha. So here are my top tips for you if you are dating after a divorce. Number 1, stay connected to your friends and family, because they are the ones that are going to help you get through this. They're your support circle. And I often mention this, but think about them, use them. They want what's best for you. They're going to help you navigate the new path you're going to be taking. And things may have changed since last time you were single, and they might have the answers for you. The next thing I want you to tell you all is don't rush into anything that you're not ready for. If you're maybe tired of being on your own, it might be difficult to wait for somebody. If you don't want to be desperate and to hunt too quickly, then just chill out and do things at your own pace. It's much more effective to do things calmly and do the things that you want to do when you're ready. The next thing is forget the excuses. It's very easy to make excuses not to start dating again. You're tired, you're not ready, you're worried about how your ex might handle things, you're scared what your children might do. You also worry about how people will react with you spending time with new people after you've been married for so many years. But you know what? These are all just excuses. And once you put the excuses aside, you'll see that they're the things that are stopping you from finding the love that you deserve again. And my next tip is to make the first move to start dating again. Because once you get started, the initial first steps, you will see that your life will start to transform for the better. Maybe you want to try a dance class, even a virtual one, or you're going to accept an invitation to a friend's barbecue. Get yourself out there and see who you might meet. And the next tip, of course, is to consider online dating. If the last time that you had a date was maybe decades ago, it's time to consider new options. There are so many different online dating sites out there. Some do absolutely specialize in people that are second time around dating. Explore your choices and see what there might be and just have some fun with it. And my last bit of advice, we mentioned this before, is that initially, don't be tempting to ask your children too much about the sort of person that you're dating or ask their thoughts and opinion. Do it yourself. Get to know the person for face value. And when you're ready, then tell your kids about them and then ask them what they think. But make your own decisions, your own judgments. And don't put your children through something too quickly if you're not ready for it. Now, dating after divorce is not an easy process, but if you make the right choices, it can be a fun, enjoyable new adventure. Stay positive, avoid the excuses, and you can find love again, just as Tasha did. Tasha, any thoughts on those?
Yeah, completely agree. And it's funny because it reflects everything we've been saying over the last half an hour or so. So yeah, absolutely. Just, it's no such thing as failure, is it? It's just feedback. So if something doesn't work, sometimes it's just about the timing, sometimes it's just about the person, but always think that there is going to be somebody out there for you, and not just one person. You know, the universe is massive. So yeah, I love that one about the excuses, because sometimes we just need to get over ourselves and stop putting obstacles in our way. And obviously that comes from a place of fear, doesn't it? And just the more you do it, it's like going out in COVID, you know, might be a bit anxious about it, but the more you do it in a safe way, the easier it becomes. And it's the same with dating, is that, you know, the more confident you are in going into somewhere for the first time and being on your own, the more you do it, you're like, oh yeah, I wasn't worried about that, because what's the worst that's going to happen? But you have to take yourself out of the comfort zone to feel confident in yourself. And that's very attractive, isn't it? That's what people love. They love being around other confident people.
Exactly. Confidence attracts confidence, and happiness attracts happiness. There's never a perfect time for anything. People might say, well, I'll wait till COVID's over. I'll wait till the new year. Wait till I've lost a stone. Wait till I've got a new job. No, don't wait for anything. This happens in the background. This is your life. What's more important to you? Getting on with it now and taking action can have big results. So Tasha, thank you so much for joining me today. If any of my listeners want to get hold of you or want some advice on NLP or well-being or parenting or relationships, how can they find you?
So I've got the website, which is www.letsmaketime.co.uk. And I also have the Let's Make Time Facebook page. And I also set up the Blended Family and Co-Parenting with Your Ex Facebook page at the beginning of the year. So that's obviously really great for people who are in similar positions to me. And we also launched the Feel Good Parenting page, also on Facebook. So lots of opportunity to start engaging and understanding a little bit about the NLP coaching that I do with people in relationships and parenting.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned so much, and I love your happy ending that you've got now. And I say happy ending, it's the happy beginnings, really, isn't it? It's because it carries on. So thank
Happy
you
every day.
happy every day. And I wish you all the best with your lovely family, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.